Hello, it's 10 p.m. in Accra, midnight in Cape Town and Hong Kong. Wherever you're watching us from, this is News at 10 on TV3 and on 3FM 92.7. Let me take you through the day's major news highlights. The minority in Parliament has accused the Speaker of disrespecting and frustrating them. The group threatened to boycott proceedings if the trend continues. This follows what the minority says is the Speaker's refusal to recognize both the minority leader and minority chief whip during proceedings Thursday. Education Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh has disclosed the free senior high school policy will cover only 3 years of the second cycle education. This means students who are repeated for non-performance in the third year will not enjoy the policy. And the Controller and Accountant General's Department will from August withhold salaries of heads of departments who fail to validate their staff for payment. According to the department, in July this year alone, more than 22,000 unknown employees on government payroll were paid without validation. This is still News at 10. Remember, we're live on our Facebook page, and also you can hear us on 3FM 92.7. Let's start now. Founding president of Imani, Franklin Kujo, says the current happenings at the Electoral Commission is a grand scheme to do the chairperson in. Speaking on TV3's Hot Issues to be aired on Saturday, Mr. Kujo says there are sharks at the Electoral Commission who are bent on stifling some reforms being pursued by the chairperson, Charlotte Osei.
What is playing out for me in this particular instance seemed to me to be a situation where one person seems to be interested in trying to solve the bedlam, if you like, the challenges that the Electoral Commission has. And he or she is actually being swamped by the people in the swamp, because what is emerging clearly is that this is a woman who has tried without number to rein in some of her deputies. She's nested a lot of thoughts and a lot of challenges at the commission, and these things are just coming out right now. If you notice that almost everybody seems to be up against her, must tell you that there is some grand collusion in order to kick her out. She has actually been in the battle of her life throughout the entire time that she had been at the commission. That's my reading of what is happening right now, because if she could make an allegation that some of her deputies, especially the deputy in charge of operations, could actually transfer votes illegally, tells me that during the election process, when we were having all these challenges, the poor lady was actually trying to keep together a commission whose leadership were trying to undermine her authority. If the weight can be put on what the commissioner said, that she found to her chagrin that her deputy in charge of operations illegally transferred thousands of votes, that obviously tells you that there were aspects of the election that could have been compromised. I'm taking the high road to suggest that everything we are seeing was actually one lady or one woman who had stomached a lot of nonsense by her deputies, and to the extent that she managed to pull the elections itself, it's actually some feather in her cap. But there have been exhibits of that already shown by the woman herself. I mean, if this person is fighting all these battles and fighting all the persons that have been mentioned, I'm not proclaiming that they are necessarily guilty, but I'm just saying that an institution that has not lent itself to the kinds of transparency that would demand is little surprised that these things are happening right now.
Right, the full interview will be aired on Saturday at 1 p.m. on TV3 and on 3FM 92.7. Up next is The Big One. Welcome to The Big One. Now, the Minister of Food and Agriculture, Dr. Owusu Efriye Ekoto, I beg your pardon, says the fall army worms is under control and express hope to record zero infection next year. He said some 14,413 farmlands have so far been destroyed by the worm invasion. He was answering questions on the floor of Parliament.
The minister said 112,812 hectares of farmlands were affected by the fall armyworm and 14,413 hectares of farmlands destroyed.
The fall armyworm invasion has been defeated by the government. We are in anticipation of the surpluses that we are expecting. We are making frantic efforts in order that we will store and make sure that not one single bean or one single grain is lost at the farm gate because of lack of markets.
On the Planting for Food and Jobs program, the minister said over 157 million cedis has so far been spent in the major cropping season, with costs for the minor season yet to be received by the ministry. He also indicated 188,338 farmers have been registered for the program, out of which 34,000 have been captured electronically.
What concrete steps have been taken towards the construction of warehouses?
We are taking stock of all warehouses around the country to see in which districts there are no storage facilities, so that we can then target these warehouses to construct the facility for them.
Still in Parliament, an agreement between Ghana and the United States on the resettlement in Ghana of two former Guantanamo Bay detainees, Mahmoud Umar Mohammed bin Atef, Khalid Mohammed Salih Al-Dubi, has been laid. Ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, speaking off camera, said he had filed a question to ask the Minister of Foreign Affairs the position of government on the two former detainees in Ghana.
Let's quickly get onto the telephone lines and speak with Edward Kariwe, the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union. Mr. Kariwe, good evening and thank you for joining us here on A News at 10, which obviously were many listeners on radio as well. Now, the minister is expressly saying that the armyworm invasion is under control. Can you tell us whether this is truly the case?
Well, let me say good evening to your viewers and to all of you who are making it possible for some of us to be on your network. I think that, well, we just have to take it that he has said it as the minister in charge of agriculture. He has said that it is under control. So we accept that. So we believe that come tomorrow or later in the week or so, there will not be complaints that the armyworm is still found somewhere.
But the reason I asked that question, Mr. Kariwe, the reason I'm asking this question is the fact that your members are on the ground. I'm sure that as a union, you could have had some feedback from your members, whether or not they still feel swamped by the armyworm invasion or the pressure is coming down.
Well, let me say that when it is that the armyworm is under control, it means that there are still some of the armyworms on the farms, except that they are no more at a magnitude that could continue to cause havoc. That's my understanding if you say that the armyworm is under control. But the point I just want to make here is that, yes, that is even likely because if you look at the recent rainfall has been a contributory factor to deal with the fall army. You know, when the rains are heavy, they wash away almost everything, including the army worms. So if you look at what had just happened at Tamale, where we had floods, you know, the flood carried on its way anything that probably meets. So even heavier items and so on, and even drums, living organisms. So certainly, after the flood, you should expect a low visibility of the fall armyworm. You know, so yes, it is good news that the rains have come to support us to fight it. But the question we have to be asking ourselves: had the rains not come, could we have been making such a categorical statement that through our efforts, our interventions, we've been able to deal decisively with the fall armyworm?
Right. So if I get the point you're making, it does mean that you are informed that the control of the armyworm invasion is not necessarily through some policy intervention or mechanisms put in place by the Agric Ministry or Extension Services, correct? And that you attribute the success to the rains.
Yeah, we are just also picking from just last week. You know, the whole media had it that some farmers were complaining, and then we felt that they were mixing omo with pepper and finding their own means. So the question one would ask, just from last week, the problem was so huge. And from last week to this week, what has changed dramatically in terms of policy intervention to bring the armyworm to the level that we have been told it is? You know, but we also know that within last week and this week, there have been this huge rain intervention. So one does not need to have any doubt as to the source of the control of the fall armyworm. But let me also state that it's not just about defeating them now, because the fall armyworm was there last year, and yet when this year the rainy season started, or the season started, it invaded so many farmlands more than last year. What are we going to put in place to make sure that next year we just do not increase more? I mean, we do not lose more farmland to the fall armyworm.
Mr. Kariwa, we're grateful for your time. Thank you very much. Edward Kariwa is the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union. This is News at 10. We're live from the News Hub at Asiedu-Dartey. You can also hear us on 3FM 92.7, and we're streaming live on our Facebook page. We have more news for you. Welcome back. Now, there is growing tension among clearing agents over delays in processing their documents following the interdiction of some 50 custom officers at the Tema port. So far, over 100 custom officers have been interdicted for various offences. My colleague Komla Kluche has been finding out more on this.
Yes, there's the allegations that they were involved in not applying due diligence in the course of their duty. And as a result, the allegation also says that the state has lost an amount of money in revenue, and for that reason, it should appear before a committee of inquiry. Confirmed, indeed, 50 of my men, 50 custom officials of the GRA Custom Division have been interdicted.
A firm confirmation of a major shake-up at the port, an investigation that started as far back as 2012 into the activities of officers, especially at the compliance section of customs.
Per some computations done, a certain amount of money came out that the state has lost so much. But whether that figure is a fair reflection of the amount actually lost remains a question that will come out following the investigations.
Initially, 15 officers were interdicted at the Preventive Service for allegedly aiding tax evasion and reducing duties in connivance with importers. Additionally, 19 persons were interdicted in connection with alleged fraud. The latest of the ongoing interdiction exercise involved some 81 custom officers who were interdicted on Monday. The first batch of the latest interdictions involves 31 officers comprising 17 females and 24 males. The second batch has the highest number of 50 officers consisting of 13 females and 37 males who reportedly diverted revenue belonging to the state. These remain allegations.
Obviously, morale will be down because at the time of interdiction, they are given 2/3 of their salary. For so long as the interdictions or investigations continue, that's right, they will continue to enjoy 2/3 of their salaries.
Right, in the studio tonight, we have Kwabena Ofosu Appiah, the president of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders, joining us here. Mr. Appiah, good evening. We're grateful that you could join us. We understand that the figure has shot up. Now, over 200 officers are on interdiction. Tell me how that is impacting on the work itself. I mean, we've heard the story. We've heard that this is impacting your work, but give me a clear picture of exactly how bad the situation is.
Mr. Evans, I must put on record that we are not here to do any advocacy for any interdicted officer or stuff like that.
Or individuals.
We are here to ensure that the ship of state moves forward. In that regard, we will have to look at the effect of some of these interventions on the process flow. If you ask me, it is terrible. It is virtually like there's a gridlock.
How terrible? I mean, let's take from example when goods come in and people have that documentation. What aspects of the process is delayed because of the absence of these individuals?
There is an upstream process. That is where you do the pre-arrival assessment report, where you get the CCVR, that is the Customs Classification and Evaluation Report. Now, the way these interdictions and moving of officers is being done, it is as though it's been done with no recourse at all to the kind of history that is behind them, the capacity that has been built over time, their resourcefulness. You see, in certain jurisdictions, even when people are found to have murdered, the plea bargain is put in place so that the full extent of what has been done can be unearthed. I think that some more intelligence will have to be infused into this exercise. You see, because, you see...
So you're suggesting that the exercise is erratic and is not intelligence-led, and perhaps it didn't take into consideration the possibility that this could hinder revenue generation for the state?
You see, when you take a soldier out and you replace it with another soldier, soldier goes, soldier come. These are very technical desks that men in blue will have to come and fill. You don't just put anybody in blue uniform to fill a seat and expect that the process will run smoothly. It will not happen. And I don't think, you see, I'm a bit worked up because we are talking about live situations. Live. This is not a situation where you can say, oh, let's stay the process and hold the construction process and make sure that we've got the requisite skills to take it up.
Because as you're doing that, as you're delaying at your end, goods are still coming.
And this is the peak period.
And,
this is the peak period. I just asked myself, haven't people studied the flow? Haven't they watched the statistics, how the system or how imports are structured? This is the time that the system peaks. It starts from somewhere in June, July, August. Now you link all of this out with the audacious pronouncement of the Vice President, the 1st September timeline for the 3-point policies to be effected. What are we doing? Are we ready to take off? I mean, you can't just, I mean, you see, what has been established has been established. The fear factor, the fear of God has been established. There has been perfect pronouncement that points out to how we want to do things differently. Now, if you have taken time to build a certain system, you have created a certain subculture that allows for people to place a call to shake the men downstream, to do things in a certain way. please, I want to appeal.
So you are saying that the approaches adopted by government is wrong?
It is
because
wrong.
One, they didn't take into consideration replacing the core staff they're taking away, and this is a peak period.
This is a peak period.
What is the alternative suggestion you have to deal with, for example, institutional corruption within the service which government is trying to deal with? Apart from the interdiction, you think there could be any other way?
Evans, I'm telling you something. What we have always clamored for is systems. It is very easy for people to drop that factor of corruption here, corruption there. We have identified where corruption is.
To fix the problem.
We have also identified the tools to deploy to fix these things. Now the question we need to ask ourselves is the tools that we have deployed. To what extent have we given vent to the tools to be able to be used to fix these corruption issues? You know, we can pray these things off. Elsewhere, systems have been put in place to check these things. And when we decide that these things are going to work for us, it will work for us.
And there are also concerns by some of our sources at the ports that there is what I call extreme pressure from external forces like politicians and all of that coming to bear on some custom officers. Is that the case?
Evans, I mentioned a certain subculture that
you've been calling me Evans all evening, but I'm Steve.
Steve.
Right, so yeah, so is that the true situation at the ports?
Like I mentioned, a certain subculture has been created. It took time for it to be created. It has to take time for it to be dismantled. As I speak with you, we are not doing so much to dismantle that subculture. If you give people the kind of leverage that they need to know that they have secure tenure, where you cannot just spring surprises of reshuffling and transfers on them, where you can make them face off with whatever calls come from whichever sector or section, you then will expect that they will work.
But these systems have been there for God knows how. We do not expect that this will change in the first 7 months of a new government.
Exactly. That is why what we are doing, that is why I call in the intelligence factor. You see, you don't just drop the stake like that. We are all for correcting the system because it augurs well for some of us who want to be compliant. You know, but if the stake is dropped the way it is being dropped, it makes the whole thing murky. You will not be able to isolate people very well for treatment.
So how is all of these, how are all of these affecting the paperless ambition that the Vice President has so loudly spoken about?
You see, in the very not so distant past, we were going through the pre-arrival system, I mean, for about 85% of askings within 24, 48 hours. As we speak, it has ballooned to over 1 week. And, you know, in all of this, the other actors downstream, they do not discount these acts. I don't want to call them acts of God because they are, I mean, they can be envisaged. These folks are not discounting all these acts. So you have the ground handlers laughing to the banks, the shipping lines laughing to the banks, because when these things happen upstream, the demurrage soars up. Maybe some of you should look at the levels of demurrage that we are looking at within this short period of time.
Very interesting. So now, before we let you go, I know that at the heart of all of this is revenue generation. In the interest of maximizing profit for Ghana, how effective do you think, what effective measure, I beg your pardon, do you think could be taken to resolve this matter?
See, Steve, with all this gridlock, at the end of the day, government will take its revenue, but at what cost? That cost, when you leverage it on the total scenario, me and you will pick it up at the market. That is how dire the situation is.
Right, Mr. Kwabena Ofosu-Appiah, we're grateful for your time. This is still news at 10 on TV3 and 3FM 92.7. Let's move away from that. Over 100 Ghanaians who have been stranded in Libya were Tuesday deported back to Ghana aboard an Africa Airways. The returnees arrived at Kotoka International Airport around 4 p.m. local time. Jonathan Adams spoke to some of them. The 100 Ghanaian returnees from Libya say they were kept in different prisons in Tripoli in that country. Almost all the returnees arrived at the Kotoka International Airport without any belonging except their clothes and shoes. According to them, harsh treatment were meted out to them in the different prisons in Libya. At the Kotoka International Airport in Accra, officials of the International Organization for Migration arranged food and money for them to go to their destinations.
They just arrest us just like that, to put us inside a prison for a couple of months now, no food, no anything.
We were arrested on the sea, on the ocean, Mediterranean, and they sent us to one prison. It was terrible. I can't speak that. It was see all my face. See, I lean. If you see my body, all scratches.
And an Accra Central District Court has told the prosecution handling the murder case of the late J.B. Dankwa, Ibuakwa North MP, to return to court in 3 weeks prepared instead of asking more time for investigations. This follows the prosecutor's constant request for more time to properly conclude investigations.
After rearresting the suspects in the murder of the former Member of Parliament, prosecution told the court more leads have been identified. In his last appearance, Deputy Superintendent of Police George Amega told the Accra Central District Court more time is needed to conclude with investigation. Appearing in court on July 27, DSP George Amega again told the court the investigator needs additional time to finish with investigations. The magistrate Ariton Simon told prosecution to return to court with better information rather than pleading for time. The two accused persons, Daniel Asiedu and Vincent Boso, were earlier discharged by the Criminal Division of the Accra High Court after the Attorney General filed a nolle prosequi to discontinue with the prosecution. The two were, however, rearrested by the police immediately after the judge's orders were delivered.
And that's how we draw the curtains for News at 10. Thank you very much for making time, and thanks for tuning in to 3FM 92.7. For those of you who listened to us on radio, on behalf of the crew here, good night.